Hi, it's Dominic from the msguide.com. Today, we're talking to somebody who I've known for a while. His name is Robert, and he's had stem cells in the UK in the last few years. When Robert was diagnosed with MS in his late 40s, a mutual friend put us in touch because I've had MS for ages now, 28 years, and you just get to know some people in the system. So I just pointed Robert at a couple of people and he took it from there. He's had a full stem cell treatment, and I think it's been about 2 years now. So I'm going to catch up with Robert. We used to have lunch before the pandemic from time to time, but I haven't actually seen him for a bit. So it's going to be really great. Hi, everybody. We're here with Robert, somebody who I've known for some time now. Rather than me give an introduction, I'm just going to turn it over. Robert, can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name is Robert Douglas Fairhurst. I'm Professor of English at Magdalen College Oxford. I've been in Oxford since 2002. Before that, I taught in Cambridge. So not a very kind of varied life, you might think, at least academically. And I was diagnosed about 4 years ago with MS, which was a big surprise, having not really had any of the classic symptoms. I noticed one thing, and on the basis of that one thing, which was my legs becoming weak after I'd been walking for 20 or 30 minutes, I visited my GP and said, this is a bit strange. Do you think there might be some kind of, I don't know, sort of vitamin deficiency or something? He said, it sounds neurological, which was news to me. On the basis of that, because through the university, I had private health insurance, I could get an appointment with a neurologist very fast, within a couple of weeks. On the basis of that, I had an MRI, again, very fast. On the basis of that, I had a diagnosis within a month to 6 weeks, which is astonishing compared to the 2-3 more years that it takes a lot of people to get a diagnosis. So in that sense, I was very, very lucky, despite the unluckiness of the disease.
Wow. I remember it was a mutual acquaintance that put us together because they said, Dom, you've had this for yonks. Robert's just had this dropped on him. I just remember sort of kind of just steering you. I mean, you can work out how to do things yourself, but just saying you might want to talk to A or B or C. The thing that makes me really jealous of you, Robert, and I know jealousy is an ugly emotion, but nonetheless, you ended up having stem cells in the UK.
I did. So the rationale for that was the neurologist I saw privately said that her provisional diagnosis was primary progressive MS because of the age profile, because of the fact that I hadn't had any kind of obvious symptoms before that. But she wanted me to be seen by a more senior colleague. The more senior colleague put me through the standard battery of tests and said that, of course, given that there was no history of measured decline, it's very difficult at that stage to kind of put me on one of the standard kind of models. But he said, it does seem that given the kind of pattern of lesions and your kind of symptoms, primary progressive MS would seem logical. I then did the research that we all do. I talked to people, including you, Tom. It became very clear that at that stage, and this was 4 years ago, there was no medication that could do more than potentially address individual symptoms or potentially limit the speed of advance. The only thing that seemed to be possible was HSCT, this hematopoietic stem cell transplant. So I looked into the standard ways of doing that. In other words, going abroad, going to Moscow.
I remember talking about that with you.
Yeah. And so I put out my kind of feelers to those places, and it seemed clear that I would be accepted by them. But instead, I went to an open day at London Bridge Hospital. And then I went through the kind of the various hoops you have to go through, another neurologist, more tests, a lumbar puncture, all the things you have to go through.
Yeah.
And then I went through the whole thing as quickly as I could on the grounds that, as everyone says, the fitter you are when you're going through the process, the likelier it is you'll have a positive outcome. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I just remember, and then we had this relationship where we talk and everything, and all of a sudden you almost disappeared because you had to go into this sort of purdah, because you just think you're kind of asking somebody about something which is, I imagine, kind of hard to put into words sometimes. I mean, you write books. I mean, you're pretty good at putting things into words in my mind, but it's you know, I said to a couple of friends I know who are keen on stem cells, and they wanted me to ask you, and this may sound, I'm not being facile, did it hurt?
No, no, not at all. So as with any medical procedure, the things that hurt are the things before the procedure.
All the
So,
needles.
yeah, exactly. So uh, what happens, as many people watching this will know, is that you are given, an infusion. You then take pills. You do things to try and increase the flow of stem cells into your bloodstream to make it easier to get them out.
Yeah.
And the getting of them out, I suppose, is the most awkward or painful bit, because then you have to have a big needle stuck in your thigh.
Fine.
Yeah, in my, well, actually in my case it's my groin, because the needle was too big to go in my arm vein. My veins were too fine,
I
too
think you would have
delicate.
put off some people right now by saying the needle was too big.
Well, but as ever, the area is numbed. You
Yeah.
you don't feel anything, but if you watch, you see what looks like a knitting needle kind of going into your groin in my case. And then your blood circulates through this machine. It's the most astonishing thing to watch. You are simply the middle part of this large operation in which your blood is pumping around, and gradually the stem cells are being sort of filtered, kind of sucked out of the blood, until there is this uh, almost like a sort of jiffy bag, a transparent jiffy bag full of what looks like sort of strawberry jam,
Mm-hmm.
which is then taken away and frozen. And then the key bit of the process, as I'm sure many people watching this will know, is you then go through a process of chemotherapy, some of which happens at home when your hair falls out and you might feel a bit.
Just pills.
Pills, that's right. An infusion followed by pills.
Right.
Um,
I
and
remember your hair falling out and you decided
that's
to
right.
adopt a different hairstyle.
Yeah. I just had it all chopped off, but I waited until it was starting to come out in clumps, and then I had it all chopped off.
Yeah.
And then the serious business is when you go into hospital, and then at least the British protocol, the one which we adopt here, is I think it's 5 days of chemotherapy as an inpatient within a kind of a hermetically sealed bubble. As your blood counts kind of plummet, therefore you become much more vulnerable to infection. People have to be very careful as to how they interact with you. And then once you are at a level which is, adequate, your stem cells are then reintroduced, and the whole thing only takes a couple of hours. And
Wow.
then
You imagine it's sort of weeks and months.
no, and then you spend the next sort of 10 days or so kind of recovering. But obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on there, and far more. I was hooked up to drips. I had an intravenous kind of thing in my arm, so um, they could extract blood every day, several vials of blood every day. They could stick the stuff in there. So you do feel a bit like a sort of test tube mouse, which people are either extracting things from you or pumping things into you. For,
Great.
for
Yeah.
several weeks. But then, then you go home and you recover.
So it's essentially the rebuilding then, isn't it? After the procedure, you're sort of knocked back quite hard, and then you have to rebuild your immune system, and also the fact that you've sort of been flat on your back almost for a month, should we say?
Yeah.
Affects everything, as we all know, exercise and stuff. So
Exactly. Now, and the good thing, I'm not here to do a sales pitch for London Bridge, but
no.
one of the good things about that place, apart from the fact that the food is better, the room is nicer, all the rest of it, is they did provide a physio every day.
Right.
So every day when I wasn't, hallucinating because of the drugs, I had a physio session just to keep me kind of active.
Yeah.
They check that you can move safely in your own environment before they release you. So in my case, that was, can I get up and down stairs?
Yeah.
And I could.
Wow. I mean, just when we came on just before, you said you'd just been to the gym,
Yeah,
and this is fairly early on in the day, isn't it? I mean, we're talking now in the UK about 9:30 in the morning. So you've already done your gym routine.
I do an hour of weights 3 times a week, and I go early in the morning because even though my body, we all have, anyone with MS has their own strange individual kind of cycles, don't they, of kind of
Yeah, yeah.
strength. Weakness. Most people are stronger in the morning. Oddly, I'm not. Oddly, I'm at my weakest in the morning.
Wow.
And my strength gradually builds up over the day, so that by sort of 6 o'clock, unless I've had a drink, I am, walking at my strongest. But that's why I go to the gym the very first thing in the morning, to try and build up resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though, of course, a disease of the central nervous system isn't, I mean, the fact having big muscles isn't going to help with that at all. But it does help to keep things moving the same way that yoga or swimming or anything else would.
Yeah. Again, another outsider's question is, and a lot of people ask, to me, stem cells are like a hard reset. When you get so frustrated with your computer, it's like, oh, bugger, I'm going to have to turn it off and turn it on again, and I might lose something, but nothing else works. To me, stem cells are a hard reset like that.
Mm.
Would you say it has changed anything for the better, or has it just stopped things getting worse, or are things still progressing? What do you feel it's done for you, this hard reset?
So one of the problems with any drug therapy or HSCT or anything else, of course, is that we don't have an individual point of comparison. So therefore, we will never know what would have happened if we had or hadn't taken a particular course. What has happened with me is that all the symptoms that I had developed in the year between diagnosis and starting the stem cell regime, which included iritis and bladder urgency, and as you can hear in my voice, my vocal cords being sort of
I've
compromised.
always known you as husky, so.
But that's why.
Yeah.
So vocal cords, yes, weakness with my legs, ankle drop. I mean, a wide kind of range of kind of problems. They had got quickly worse in the year since my diagnosis. Since I came out of hospital, I think that nothing has got worse, and there have been no new symptoms.
So how long has that been now?
So it's been 2 years.
Right. Okay.
Since I got out of hospital, almost exactly 2 years. So things like, urgency, yes, but it's under control, and I'm more used to it, so I know how to deal with it. Things like walking weakness, I can walk probably a mile the outside in a kind of stomping Frankenstein's monster kind of way, but I don't need a stick. I don't need any other mobility aid or ankle braces. And that has remained pretty stable from when I got out of hospital and I measured what I could do. So,
Right.
so in that sense, I think it has been a success. I finished a book recently. I don't feel noticeably more stupid. And that was one of my great anxieties, that I would get sort of foggy and be unable to articulate myself, and the things that I do for a living would simply become impossible. That hasn't happened, which was the most important thing for me.
Well, reading, writing, and teaching, and that's the sort of basis of your life, isn't it? And all that requires.
Precisely. And I know that what's the cliche, time is brain, isn't that what people say?
Yeah, that's what Prof G, I think, coined that. But yeah, time is brain. But
and anyone who does what I do for a living, of course, that's going to be important. And again, I recognize how fortunate I am, A, to being able to do it at all, and B, that the effect that all of this has had on my life has been certainly not minimal. I mean, there are lots of things I now can't do, which I could do before. I can't drive because of my ankle. I can't walk far. I can't be in hot climates. So therefore, some holidays is a problem. All of these things, which a lot of people with MS will recognise. But I am very lucky in that a lot of what I do is a version of what I'm doing now with you, which is communicating ideas. And I realized a lot of people are not in that position. So if I'd gone into another line of work, like being an actor, which was always a possibility, I would now be absolutely screwed. The compromises I need to make in my day-to-day life are such that none of my kind of core activities are that limited.
Do you know what I find? After 28 years of it, I've only started reflecting recently. In some ways, it's something I try not to do, or I've always tried not to do, because I kind of don't want to know what I find out, if you will. But it's the tiny incremental accommodations you've made over the years to, and then you stop and reflect and say, what can't I do now? I refuse to get down about it, but you realize how A, adaptable you are, and B, how much things have changed, but it's sort of crept up on you. And it's like, it's death by a thousand cuts. Well, death is the wrong analogy, but you see what I mean. You just,
yeah. No, it absolutely is. And the one thing which I've started writing or planning a book about this. And one of the things which I have learned, which again sounds cheesy and appalling in lots of ways, the whole kind of mindful notion of being grateful for what you can do rather than pining over what you can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether that is the fact that I can still get up the stairs unassisted, that's a good, but taking pleasure in being able to do that rather than moaning over the fact that I have to swing my legs kind of painfully one by one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was speaking to a guy the other day. He said, I'm limited to a mobility scooter, but his sole issue with the mobility scooter was, he said, my hands freeze. And I said, I used to ride motorbikes, something I can no longer do, but we had heated grips. And he went, what? And I said, oh yeah, buy them from a motorcycle catalog, heated grips, get a little battery. And he was made up. This was looking forward at solving a problem today, not, oh dear, I can't do anything because I have a mobility scooter or it limits me. It's, oh, I can warm my hands up. And I felt thrilled to be able to cross over some knowledge from something else. But his attitude, and he said, I can't talk to you until later today. I'm getting a new stair lift installed. I think I'm going to put on a dinner jacket, get a glass of champagne, and just go up and down the stair lift a few times. I thought it was just brilliant. Yeah.
There's a lovely line of Alan Bennett's where his mother is on her first stair lift, and she's very delighted, and he said it's like she was on the Big Dipper.
Look, Robert, it's really interesting. When this book, you kind of dropped it in, it's what sort of angle are you going to take? Is it going to be about you, or about it, or about how it affects things?
It's going to be about all of those things, yes. So what I want it to be is the process of going through what I went through, but seen from the perspective of someone who makes sense of the world through words, and whether in fact that is helpful or not. I mean, I've just recently, in the last few weeks, I've been reading a couple of dozen novels. Which the main character has MS. And it's fascinating seeing the kind of plots that people's lives seem to fall into in wide range, a lot of romantic fiction, in which people find love despite MS, in one case because of MS. There's a lot of, whereas when men are concerned, women, it tends to be romantic comedy. They discover love with the hunk who loves them even though blah, 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 blah. With men, it tends to be debilitating tragedy, in which we take a sort of a carer's pleasure.
When you say men, is it male authors or female authors, or is it
it's
in the book?
It's both male and female, but I think because most the majority of patients with relapsing remitting MS are women, that kind of rhythm of decline and recovery tends to fit much better into the story of romance, in which you have dips and rises. Whereas the idea of primary aggressive MS, mostly men, the idea of a kind of slide downwards until you hit the bottom, that tends to attract.
Managing the decline.
Managing the tragedy, precisely.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's been
fascinating. Robert, if you send me that list, I'll put it to the description of the video, because I'm sure people will want to know some of the various fiction. That would be really kind. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Look, we could go on and on, I'm sure. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you for lunch again. But in the meantime, I'd just like to say thanks very much for giving up some of your very valuable time. I know how busy you are to speak to us at the msguide.com.
It's my pleasure. And anyone who's watching, good luck to you in your various journeys. Is that the word? Whichever direction they take you.
And I hope you stand as an inspiration to many. So, Robert, have a lovely day. Take care. Thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. If you've stuck it to the end here, then I'm super grateful. You could really help the channel by liking, subscribing. That's the main thing. Subscribing tells the computers at YouTube that this is good stuff. I do try to answer comments. It's just me. I am the msguide.com. So I do my level best. If there's anything that you want to know, you want to hear more about, pop it in the comments. I'd rather respond to what people want than just constantly make up stuff that I think you might want. Anyhow, have a lovely day. Cheerio. Bye-bye.